Alright guys, I don't know if you guys can see me or what, but I'm coming at you guys with another video on the behalf of Solid Foundation Israelite Academy. It's very late, so everything is dark around me. I'm actually inside of the truck doing this lesson, and I have the AC on, so just disregard the AC in the back if you will. I would try to speak over that. But without further ado, I'm going to get straight into the lesson. And so the topic of discussion is Adam and Eve was not naked, literally, without clothes. When you read the book of Genesis, you know, we've been taught that Adam and Eve was naked in the garden and they was without clothing, but that's far from the truth. And so I would shed some light on the subject. Adam and Eve was not literal naked. So what does it mean when Genesis says Adam and Eve was naked? Well, let's get into it. You can take notes if you will. Share the video with family and friends, and please don't forget to subscribe if you will. Help the ministry, help the movement. Alright? And so before I get into the lesson, I just want to apologize for negative things in general. If I offended you guys out there, and things that I've done to myself, and also in terms of sinning against the Most High. So yeah, so we're not supposed to be hearers of the word only, but we're supposed to be doers of the word. And I think that's where the challenge come in, at being doers of the word. It's easy to hear the word, but to actually apply the word in your life and live up to the word, that's challenging than ever. So again, the Most High forgive all of us, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans as the Israelites, for sins that we committed intentionally and sins that we committed unintentionally. So here we go. This is Genesis chapter 2 and 25. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. So it tells you in Genesis 2 and 25 that Adam and Eve, they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Now, the book of Genesis is written as an allegory, like a parable. So it's not literal, all right? I'm not going to say the whole entire book of Genesis is written as an allegory, but most definitely Genesis chapter 1, 2, and 3 is very parabolic, allegorical. And so it says they was both naked. Doesn't mean they was without clothing. It just simply means that when it says naked right here, we have to use a precept to get the over entering understanding of these things. So if you go to I would give you precepts concerning this. If you go to Revelation 16:15, I'm just putting the knowledge out here, guys. I'm not saying I'm going to make it. I'm not saying I'm part of the elect. You know, I'm just giving you the talents that I received. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keep his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. So when it said Adam and Eve was both naked and they was not ashamed, meaning that they was without righteousness, and they cared less of being, you know, they cared less of applying righteousness. Because at one point, Adam and Eve, they was upright. But then, some point later, they started deterring. They started going off from the order of righteousness. And that's why I said they was naked and they was not ashamed. They was not basically ashamed for the unrighteousness. You know what I'm saying? They was not ashamed of that, and they was not ashamed from the righteousness that they strayed away from. That's what it's talking about. So Revelation 16:15 says, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keep his garments. The garments represents righteousness. You know what I'm saying? And so the white robe, so to speak. Like if you look at Isaiah 52:1, I'm just giving you precepts to show you that Adam and Eve was not literally naked. Awake, awake, put on your strength, O Zion, put on thy beautiful garments. See what I'm saying? That's talking about righteousness. Put on your beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city. When it says Jerusalem, that's in reference to the Israelites, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. It says, put on thy beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city. For henceforth there shall no more come into thee the uncircumcised and the unclean. So he's telling you right there to repent and keep the commandments. You keep the commandments. When you keeping the commandments, you have a garment. When you keeping the commandments, you have a white robe. But if you ain't keeping the commandments, you found naked. And so when it tells you Adam and Eve was naked, they were just at some point without righteousness because they strayed away from it. See what I'm saying? And they was not ashamed of stepping out of righteousness. That's what it's talking about. All right, now, if you would look in the Apocryphal books, you see where it says Apocryphal? If you would look in the Apocryphal books at one of the books that's titled Baruch, chapter 5, in the Apocryphal, Baruch, chapter 5, and I'm going to begin with verse 1, and I'll read down to verse 2 in the Apocrypha. Baruch chapter 5, verse 1. I'll read down to 2. Put off, O Jerusalem, the garment of thy mourning and affliction, and put on the comeliness of the glory that cometh from God forever. See that? Baruch chapter 5, verse 2. Cast about you a double garment of righteousness. So the garment represents righteousness. It says, cast about you a double garment of righteousness. See that? So to be found with a garment is to be found with righteousness. But to be naked is to not be found with righteousness. That's what Adam and Eve, that's what it points to Adam and Eve being naked and not ashamed. And so Baruch chapter 5, verse 2. Cast about you a double garment of righteousness which cometh from God, and set a diadem on thy head of the glory of the everlasting. So the diadem is a crown. You know what I'm saying? So we supposed to be doing what? Casting about us a double garment. Supposed to repent and keep the commandments. Apply all these principles that the Bible speaks of, like the laws, statutes, and commandments. When you do that, you put on yourself a garment. You know what I'm saying? Here's another one dealing with the nakedness. I can give you Matthew 22. In the New Testament, Matthew 22, starting with verse 11. This is Matthew 22, verse 11. And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a man which had not on a wedding garment. That's talking about righteousness, because he was found not righteousness. He was found unholy. Matthew 22 and 12. And he said unto him, friend, now comest you in here not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. See what I'm saying? Because he was found unrighteousness. You know what I'm saying? And that was Matthew 22 and 12. Matthew 22 verses 11 and 12. So what it means to be naked and to be found without righteousness. You see what I'm saying? This is Psalms 132 verse 9. Let thy priests be clothed with righteousness, and let thy saints shout for joy. See that? To be clothed with righteousness is to keep the commandments. And when you keep the commandments, you clothed. You know what I'm saying? That's clothed with righteousness. Give you guys another one. Let's look at in the Old Testament also, Deuteronomy 6 and 25. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all the commandments before the Lord our God as he had commanded us. So it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do the commandments. You keep the commandments, that's righteousness. You keep the commandments, you clothe with righteousness. Alright? If you don't keep the commandments, you'll be found naked. Let's continue on with more precepts. Let's also look at 2 Chronicles 28 and 19 in the Old Testament. For the Lord brought Judah low because of Ahaz, king of Israel, for he had made Judah naked and transgressed sore against the Lord. So King Ahaz, you know, he was wicked, man, and he did what? He made Israel, which is you blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. It said the Ahaz, king of Israel, for he had made Judah naked and transgressed sore against the Lord. So is it talking about King Ahaz stripping all the clothes off Judah, literally? No. It's talking about like he was bad influence on Judah, on the tribe of Judah. He was bad influence because he wasn't teaching them the commandments. He wasn't teaching them fruits of the Spirit. He wasn't giving that. So King Ahaz of Israel, he made Judah naked because he was a bad influence and Judah followed him in terms of being unrighteous. And that was 2 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 19. Alright? But we're going to keep going on. You can also look at, it's a ton on, man. You can also look at Isaiah. Well, we looked at Isaiah already. 2 Corinthians 5 and 3. If so be that being clothed, we shall not be found naked. What does that mean? We shall not be found caught without keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments. You know what I'm saying? So, if being clothed, we shall not be found naked. 2 Corinthians 5 and 3. See what I'm saying? To be not found naked is to be found righteous. You know what I'm saying? So Adam and Eve, again, guys, weren't literally naked. You know, they were just at the point of unrighteousness. You know what I'm saying? They was righteous at some point. Later on down the line, they started straying away from the commandments, you know, of God, and they find themselves to be naked, and they was not ashamed. See what I'm saying? Not literally, because that's what the white man, that's the so-called white man, that's what he does. You know the white man is the devil, so he's going to give you these fables and whatnot. He'll take a parable and make it seem literal. That's what the white man does. He take an allegory and make it actually seem literal. You know what I'm saying? And that's the misunderstanding of the Christian church. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to Adam and Eve being naked. Now, we're going to continue to go on. Give you guys a little bit more precepts, and then I'll call it a night. And so, let's look at Exodus 32 and 25 in the Old Testament. This is Exodus 32 and 25. Exodus 32 and 25. And when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked into their shame among their enemies, because that was dealing with idol worship. If you read Exodus the 28th chapter, well, not the 28th chapter, but if you read Exodus the 32nd chapter, Exodus the 32nd chapter, talking about the molten calf, how when the Israelites saw that Moses delayed to come down from Mount Sinai, they gathered themselves together to Aaron. They told Aaron, they said, make us gods which shall go before us. Because they said, this man named Moses, you know, he brought us up and out the land of Egypt, and we don't know what's become of him, because he was on the mountain for so long. So, you know what Moses' brother Aaron did? He said unto them, he said, break off your golden earrings. He said, break off your golden earrings. And they brought them to Aaron, and he fashioned it with a graven tool or whatnot, and he made a molten calf and made the Israelites, he led the Israelites in the idol worship, man. See what I'm saying? And so that's why I talk about in Exodus 32 and verse 25, when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked into their shame. They wasn't literally naked without any clothes on, but the nakedness is referring to the Israelites was found without righteousness, because that's what it's talking about. Exodus 32 and 25. And when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked into their shame among their enemies. So again, to be naked is not to be without clothing, but to be without righteousness, because the righteousness is a metaphor or allegory for the clothing. You feel me? So last but not least, give you this last chapter, last book chapter and verse. This is Ephesians chapter 6, verse 11. Ephesians 6 and 11, guys. Put on the whole armor of God. See, that is telling you to put on your clothes. You know what I'm saying? But it ain't talking about literal clothes. The armor of God is alluding to righteousness. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. See what I'm saying? So you got to put on the armor of God, which is the armor of God represents the attire, the clothing. You know what I'm saying? The wardrobe. So when you put that on, automatically, that's in reference to you keeping the law. But if you don't put on the armor of God, that's to be found naked, man. See what I'm saying? And so, guys, I just gave you a couple precepts on nakedness, because a lot of people think that Adam and Eve was literally naked in the garden, had the rod. A lot of people think Adam had his dingling out, and a lot of people also think that Eve had a tootsie roll out, and it's not that. It's not talking about that. You understand? So I hope I edified you guys on tonight. Once again, this is Genesis 2 and 25, and they were both naked, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed. See what I'm saying? So that's talking about Adam and Eve was at the point of not wanting to follow God anymore. You understand? They was on the verge of not wanting to follow God anymore. They was on the verge of not wanting to subscribe to righteousness. They grew faint. They grew tired of being righteous, and they just decided to branch off from the righteous order of God. And they was naked, and they was not ashamed. You see what I'm saying? And so that's why by the time you hit Genesis chapter 3, it talks about the fall of man. You see what I'm saying? So guys, once again, share the video, man. Salakia, Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Forgive us for the sins we committed, man. Intentional sins, unintentional sins. Help us, man. We out here struggling as the nation of Israel. We need all your help, your guidance. We need everything, man, you know, as of a nation. And so let us not be hearers of the word, but let us be doers of the word as well, man. Again, forgive us for the sins we committed. The God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all praises and glorification to Yahweh Shai, who the world called Jesus Christ, man. Share the video, guys. Peace.